Nazreen, Khawateen wa Hazrat, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you for joining us tonight on the Masjid-e-Ali YouTube channel to commemorate the auspicious occasion of the birth of Bibi Zainab salamullah alayhi. We will start off with the recitation of Quran and Hadith Qissa, and for that, I would like to welcome Brother Ghulam Heather. Please welcome him with salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala
Muhammad Ali Muhammad.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والضحى والليل إذا سجى ما ودعك ربك وما قلى وللآخرة خير لك من الأولى ولسوف يعطيك ربك فترضى ألم يجدك يتيما فآوى ووجدك ضالا فهدى ووجدك عائلا فأغنى فأما اليتيم فلا تقهر وأما السائل فلا تنهر وأما بنعمة ربك فحدث آمنت بالله صدق الله العلي العظيم صلوات
Muhammad Ali Muhammad.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم عن فاطمة الزهراء عليها السلام بنت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله أنها قالت دخل علي أبي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله في بعض الأيام فقال السلام عليك يا فاطمة فقلت عليك السلام قال إني أجد في بدني ضعفا فقلت له أعيذك بالله يا أبتاه من الضعف فقال يا فاطمة ائتيني بالكساء اليماني فغطيني به فأتيته بالكساء اليماني فغطيته به وصرت أنظر إليه وإذا وجهه يتلألأ كأنه البدر في ليلة تمامه وكماله فما كانت إلا ساعة وإذا بولدي الحسن عليه السلام قد أقبل وقال السلام عليك يا أماه فقلت وعليك السلام يا قرة عيني وثمرة فؤادي فقال يا أماه إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة جدي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله فقلت نعم إن جدك تحت الكساء فأقبل الحسن نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا جداه يا رسول الله أتأذن لي أن أدخل معك تحت الكساء فقال وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا صاحب حوضي قد أذنت لك فدخل معه تحت الكساء فما كانت إلا ساعة وإذا بولدي الحسين قد أقبل وقال السلام عليك يا أماه فقلت عليك السلام يا ولدي ويا قرة عيني وثمرة فؤادي فقال لي يا أماه إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة جدي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله فقلت نعم إن جدك وأخاك تحت الكساء فدنا الحسين نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا جداه، السلام عليك يا من اختاره الله، أتأذن لي أن أكون معكما تحت الكساء؟ فقال وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا شافع أمتي، قد أذنت لك. فدخل معهما تحت الكساء. فأقبل عند ذلك أبو الحسن علي بن أبي طالب عليه السلام وقال السلام عليك يا بنت رسول الله. فقلت وعليك السلام يا أبا الحسن ويا أمير المؤمنين. فقال يا فاطمة إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة أخي وابن عمي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله. فقلت نعم، ها هو مع ولديك تحت الكساء. فأقبل علي نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا رسول الله، أتأذن لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء؟ قال له عليك السلام يا أخي ويا وسيي وخليفتي وصاحب لوائي، قد أذنت لك. فدخل علي تحت الكساء. ثم أتيت نحو الكساء وقلت السلام عليك يا أبتاه يا رسول الله، أتأذن لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء؟ قال وعليك السلام يا بنتي ويا بضعتي، قد أذنت لك. فدخلت تحت الكساء. فلما اكتملنا جميعا تحت الكساء أخذ أبي رسول الله بطرفي الكساء وأومأ بيده اليمنى إلى السماء وقال اللهم إن هؤلاء أهل بيتي وخاصتي وحامتي، لحمهم لحمي ودمهم دمي، يؤلمني ما يؤلمهم ويحزنني ما يحزنهم. أنا حرب لمن حاربهم وسلم لمن سالمهم وعدو لمن عاداهم ومحب لمن أحبهم. إنهم مني وأنا منهم، فاجعل صلواتك وبركاتك ورحمتك وغفرانك ورضوانك علي وعليهم وأذهب عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. فقال الله عز وجل يا ملائكتي ويا سكان سماواتي، إني ما خلقت سماء مبنية ولا أرضا مدحية ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مضيئة ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحر يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا في محبة هؤلاء الخمسة الذين هم تحت الكساء. فقال الأمين جبرائيل يا ربي ومن تحت الكساء؟ فقال عز وجل هم أهل بيت النبوة ومعدن الرسالة، هم فاطمة وأبوها وبعلها وبنوها.
صلى على محمد.
فقال جبرائيل يا ربي أتأذن لي أن أهبط إلى الأرض لأكون معهم سادسا؟ فقال الله نعم قد أذنت لك. فهبط الأمين جبرائيل وقال السلام عليك يا رسول الله، العلي الأعلى يقرئك السلام ويخصك بالتحية والإكرام ويقول لك وعزتي وجلالي إني ما خلقت سماء مبنية ولا أرضا مدحية ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مضيئة ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحرا يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا لأجلكم ومحبتكم، وقد أذن لي أن أدخل معكم، فهل تأذن لي يا رسول الله؟ فقال رسول الله: وعليك السلام يا أمين وحي الله، إنه نعم قد أذنت لك. فدخل جبرائيل معنا تحت الكساء، فقال لأبي: إن الله قد أوحى إليكم يقول: إنما يريد الله ليذهب عنكم الرجس أهل البيت ويطهركم تطهيرا.
اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد.
فقال علي لأبي: يا رسول الله، أخبرني ما لجلوسنا هذا تحت الكساء من الفضل عند الله. فقال النبي صلى الله عليه وآله: والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واصطفاني بالرسالة نجيا، ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض، وفيه جمع من شيعتنا ومحبينا، إلا ونزلت عليهم الرحمة وحفت بهم الملائكة واستغفرت لهم إلى أن يتفرقوا. فقال علي عليه السلام: إذا والله فزنا وفاز شيعتنا ورب الكعبة. فقال أبي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله: يا علي، والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واصطفاني بالرسالة نجيا، ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض، وفيه جمع من شيعتنا ومحبينا، وفيهم مهموم إلا وفرج الله هما، ولا مغموم إلا وكشف الله غما، ولا طالب حاجة إلا وقضى الله حاجته. فقال علي عليه السلام: إذا والله فزنا وسعدنا، وكذلك شيعتنا فازوا وسعدوا في الدنيا والآخرة ورب الكعبة. صلوات الله.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Thank you so much, Brother Ghulam Haider, for your beautiful recitation. Nazreen, Khawateen Hazrat, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. As always, thank you once again for joining us on the Masjid-e-Ali YouTube channel. And as always, we hope and pray that you are all safe, happy, and healthy during this time. And we pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He keep you that way. And for those that are sick and ill due to the COVID pandemic or for whatever other reasons, we pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for a fast and speedy recovery. Tonight, we honor and commemorate the auspicious occasion of the birth of Bibi Zainab salamullah alayh. 5 years after the hijrah, the Holy Prophet's daughters gave birth to a baby girl. And it is narrated that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam foretold the events of her life and the role she would play in saving Islam. Bibi Fatima salamullah alayh and Hazrat Ali alayhi salam asked the Holy Prophet to name the child, to which the Prophet answered, I will not precede my Lord in such a matter. He then declared that the child be named Zainab, meaning the embellishment of the father. And with no doubt, Bibi Zainab was renowned for her leadership through her conduct, and her eloquence in speech and presentation was acquired from her father, Imam Ali alayhi salam. Brothers and sisters, tonight we commemorate this auspicious occasion. As you know, the program will start off with the recitation of the Urdu poetry in honor of Bibi Zainab salamullah alayh, followed by the English lecture in honor of Bibi Zainab by our very own Maulana Rizwan Rizvi. So with that, एक दरख्वास्त करता हूँ सलवात पढ़िए अला मोहम्मद व आले मोहम्मद अल्लाहुम्मा सल्ली अला
मोहम्मद।
इससे पहले कि मैं दावत दूं जनाब हसन जाफरी साहब से 4 मिसरे हैं, अगर इजाजत हो मुलाहिजा फरमाइए कि अगर अली की बेटी बोलता कुरान ना होती, अगर अली की बेटी बोलता कुरान ना होती, इस दहर में कोई कौम मुसलमान ना होती। अगर अली की बेटी बोलता कुरान ना होती, इस दहर में कोई कौम मुसलमान ना होती। دنیا میں اگر ہوتی نہ بطول کی بیٹی، دنیا میں اگر ہوتی نہ بطول کی بیٹی، تو یہ حج، یہ نماز، یہ اذان نہ ہوتی. ایک صلوات پڑھی علی محمد وآل محمد. اب میں درخواست گزار ہوں اور دعوت دیتا ہوں جناب حسن جعفری صاحب سے کہ وہ آئیں اور بی بی کی شان میں پیش کریں. ایک صلوات پڑھیے علی محمد وآل محمد. اللہم صلی علی محمد
محمد علی محمد. آپ تمام مومنین مومنات کو بی بی زینب کی ولادت بہت مبارک ہو.
خیر مبارک.
بی بی زینب کی منقبت کے چند اشعار آپ کی خدمت میں عرض کرنا چاہتا ہوں.
بسم اللہ.
ایک بہن ایک بھائی، ایک بہن ایک بھائی، زینب اور حسین، زینب اور حسین، زینب اور حسین، ابن ابی طالب کے دلارے، نبی کی آنکھ کے تارے، اور عرش بری کے دو ماہ پارے، عرش بری کے دو ماہ پارے، ایک بہن ایک بھائی، زینب اور حسین.
بہت خوب حسن بھائی.
زینب اور حسین، اور دونوں میں ہے عکس نبی کا،
بے شک
نواسی ایک نواسا، اور وارث حیدر ثانی زہرا،
بے شک بہت خوب.
وارث حیدر ثانی زہرا، ایک بہن ایک بھائی، زینب اور حسین، زینب اور حسین، زینب اور حسین.
سبحان اللہ.
بہت خوب.
ایک نبی زادی کی دختر، ایک علی کی تیغ کا جوہر،
واہ واہ واہ.
اور عزم و عمل میں دونوں برابر،
بے شک.
عزم و عمل میں دونوں برابر، ایک بہن ایک بھائی، زینب اور حسین، زینب اور حسین، اور سبز نشان ہے شہ کے علم کا، اور چادر زینب جس کا پھریرا، اور دین کا پرچم کر گئے اونچا، دین کا پرچم کر گئے اونچا،
بے شک.
بہن ایک بھائی، زینب اور حسین، زینب اور حسین، اور ٹھکرا دی باطل کی طاعت، کیسی خلافت کیسی بیعت ٹھکرا دی باطل کی طاعت کیسی خلافت کیسی بیعت اور کرتے رہیں گے دل پہ حکومت کرتے رہیں گے دل پہ حکومت ایک بہن ایک بھائی زینب اور حسین زینب اور حسین اور لخت دل یاسین و مدثر لخت دل یاسین و مدثر اور پیش نظر وہ نور ہے ساحر پیش نظر وہ نور ہے ساحر اور ایک ہے قرآن ایک مفسر ایک ہے قرآن ایک مفسر ایک بہن ایک بھائی زینب اور حسین زینب اور حسین زینب اور حسین درود بھیجیے محمد و آل محمد
اللہم صلی علی محمد و آل محمد. جزاک اللہ حسن بھائی، بہت خوب، بہت بہت شکریہ. اس سے پہلے کہ میں کامران مہدی صاحب کو دعوت دوں، 4 مصرے اور ہیں، اجازت ہو تو ملاحظہ فرمائیے.
بسم اللہ.
کہ ملتا نہیں تھا کوئی سہارا یزید کو، ملتا نہیں تھا کوئی سہارا یزید کو، زینب نے اس طرح اجاڑا یزید کو. ملتا نہیں تھا کوئی سہارا یزید کو، زینب نے اس طرح اجاڑا یزید کو. خاتون جنگ کر نہیں سکتی تھیں اسی لیے، خاتون جنگ کر نہیں سکتی تھیں اسی لیے، خطبوں کی ذوالفقار کو مارا یزید کو. ایک صلوات پڑھی علی محمد و آل محمد. اب میں درخواست گزار ہوں جناب کامران مہدی صاحب سے کہ وہ آئیں اور بی بی کی شان میں پیش کریں. ایک صلوات پڑھیے علی محمد و آل محمد. صلی علی محمد و آل محمد.
سلمان بھائی،
جیو جیو کامران بھائی.
نور علی نور صاحب کی مسدس کے چند اشعار چند
بسم اللہ بسم اللہ بسم اللہ.
ایک مرتبہ اور بابا سے بلند صلوات پڑھ دیجیے.
اللہم صلی علی محمد و آل محمد.
زینت شیر خدا ثانی زہرا زینب.
واہ واہ.
زینت شیر خدا ثانی زہرا زینب، مثل شبیر امامت کا اثاثہ زینب.
بہت خوب.
دین اسلام چلا جس پہ وہ رستا زینب، رب اکبر کے ارادے کا ارادہ زینب. برسر خست دلا نور جلی ہے زینب، سانس لیتی ہوئی ایک ناد علی ہے زینب، لیتی ہوئی ایک ناد علی ہے زینب. مرکز عصمت حوراں ہوئی قسمت اس کی، صورت ام ابیہا ہے طہارت اس کی. کار شبیر میں شامل ہے شراکت اس کی ہے خود سورہ کوثر نے تلاوت اس کی سین پر سایہ فگن مثل خدیجہ ہونا اتنا آسان نہیں ثانی زہرا ہونا، آسان نہیں ثانی زہرا ہونا۔ دین اسلام کی عظمت کو بچایا اس نے، گام در گام امامت کو بچایا اس نے، اس نسبت سے نبوت کو بچایا اس نے، یعنی کل کار رسالت کو بچایا اس نے، اور بیردائی میں بنی دین کی چادر زینب، مذہب کرب و بلا کی ہے پیمبر زینب، مظہر کرب و بلا کی ہے پیمبر زینب، بنت زہرا ہے یہ ہے اونچے گھرانے والی، سر دربار ہے یہ خطبے سنانے والی،
بالکل بے شک،
مقصد کرب و بلا کو ہے بچانے والی، ہے یہ گفتار کو تلوار بنانے والی، اور کارواں حق کا کسی موڑ پہ رکنے نہ دیا، علم عباس کا اس نے کہیں جھکنے نہ دیا، علم عباس کا اس نے کہیں جھکنے نہ دیا، آئی دربار میں یہ لفظوں کا لشکر لے کر، قوت شیر خدا جرت ہے در لے کر، ہیبت حضرت عباس دلاور لے کر، جنگ شبیر کا آنکھوں میں یہ منظر لے کر، لہجہ حیدر کرار میں سب بول دیا، اس نے خطبوں سے لعینوں کا نسب کھول دیا، اس نے خطبوں سے لعینوں کا نسب کھول دیا، اور یہ بند ملاحظہ کریے گا، چہرہ حق کو سنوارا ہے بندھے ہاتھوں سے، چہرہ حق کو سنوارا ہے بندھے ہاتھوں سے، شام میں شمس ابھارا ہے بندھے ہاتھوں سے، قرض اسلام اتارا ہے بندھے ہاتھوں سے، دین دشمن دین کو مارا ہے بندھے ہاتھوں سے، گردنیں موڑ دی بیعت کے طلبگاروں کی، اینٹ سے اینٹ بجائی ہے درباروں کی،
سبحان اللہ،
سبحان اللہ،
بجائی ہے درباروں کی، اور آخری بند ہے مثل حیدر یہ لڑی شام کے غداروں سے، اس کی آواز کہاں دب سکی تلواروں سے، پوچھ لو آج بھی اجڑے ہوئے درباروں سے، خطبے دیتی ہوئی جب گزری بازاروں سے، دل شبیر کا احساس نظر آئی ہے، کبھی حیدر کبھی عباس نظر آئی ہے، کبھی حیدر کبھی عباس نظر آئی ہے، بر محمد وآل محمد صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم،
اللہم صلی علی محمد وآل محمد۔ بھائی بہت خوب، جزاک اللہ۔ बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया हसन भाई और कामरान भाई, आपको अल्लाह ताला आप दोनों की तौफीकात में इजाफा फरमाए। अगेन बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया आप दोनों का। Khawateen and Hazrat, as you know, once again, this will now conclude the Urdu portion of the program. Before I invite Maulana Rizwan Rizvi for his words tonight, again, I will reiterate that during these troubling times with the pandemic, there are many people who are affected by it, who are testing positive for COVID. I had just found out our very own brother Ghulam Heather has also tested positive. So for all those people who have tested positive and for all those that are watching today who are doing well, please, we ask you to please pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for all of these individuals. Allah ta'ala in sabko sehtiyab kare, and we pray for a speedy recovery. Ek salawat padi ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala
Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
With that, I would now like to invite for words of wisdom our very own Maulana Rizwan Rizvi Sahab. Please welcome him with salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala
Salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الذي قصرت عن رؤيته أبصار الناظرين وعجزت عن نعته أوهام الواصفين الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين بالقاسم محمد وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. أما بعد، فقد قال الله تبارك وتعالى وقوله الحق وهو أصدق القائلين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هذه سبيلي أدعو إلى الله على بصيرة أنا ومن اتبعني وسبحان الله وما أنا من المشركين صدق الله العلي العظيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. I would like to begin by congratulating everyone, all of the mu'mineen and mu'minat, as well as Imam of our time, Imam Mahdi Ajalallahu Ta'ala Farajahu Sharif, on this very auspicious occasion upon which we celebrate the prosperous birth of Aqila Bani Hashim, Siddiqa Sughra, Alima, Fadila, Kamila, Abidatu, Ali Ali, Janab Zainab Kubra, Salamullahi alayha. And the 5th day of Jumad al-Ula marks her prosperous birth, which was after the Wiladat of Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein. So she's the 3rd in the progeny of Ali and Fatmatu Zahra Salamullahi alayhima ajma'in. I chose this ayat from Surah Yusuf, ayat number 108, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, say, this is my way. Qul hadhihi sabili. I summon to Allah with insight. Ad'u ila Allahi ala basiratin. Ana wa man ittaba'ani. So I summon to Allah with insight, I and whoever follows me. Wa subhanallahi wa ma ana min al-mushrikeen. Immaculate is Allah, and I'm not among those who are the polytheists. The reason I chose this ayat is because I wanted to focus on one of the important aspects of the life of Bibi Zainab Salamullahi alayha, and that is her insight. She was born in the city of Madinatul Munawwara, and she was later married to Hazrat Abdullah ibn Ja'far al-Tayyar. You've heard a great deal about her titles. She's the first daughter of Amir al-Mu'mineen and Bibi Fatmatu Zahra Salamullahi alayha. And her name, Zainab, was chosen by the Holy Prophet, because I've mentioned this before, that the composition of the word Zainab is Zainu Ab. Zain means zinat, Ab means father. Just like Janabe Sayyida is called Ummu Abiha, mother of her father, Janabe Zainab is called Zainu Ab, that who is the zenith of her father. Now, it's not an ordinary father. She is the embellishment of her father. And it's not an ordinary father, as I said before. He's Amir al-Mu'mineen. He's Imam al-Muttaqeen. He's Yasubuddin. He's got all of those titles that anyone could imagine. And that's why Rawaya says that Zinatul Ardi ar-Rajal. The zenith and the purpose why this earth is created is for mankind. It's for the people that they inhabit and they live in it. If the people didn't exist, this earth would not have any meaning whatsoever. This says Zinatul Ardi ar-Rajal. The zenith and the decoration of the earth is the people that live in it. وَزِينَةُ الرَّجَالِ Ali ibn Abi Talib. And the decoration and the beautification and adornment of all of mankind is in Ali ibn Abi Talib. And then this Ali, who's the zenith of all of mankind, who are the reason for this earth and its existence, then there's a zenith for Ali, which is in the form of his daughter, Janab Zainab, salamullahi alayha. So one of the virtues of Bibi Zainab is her basirat, her insight. Businessmen, alim, driver, etc. Everyone must have basirat in their work. It will decrease their hurdles. It will decrease the problems that arise. It'll be easy for them to cope with these problems if they have an insight. I cannot be good at something without insight. It says, إِنَّمَا أَوْهَامُ الْقُلُوبِ أَكْبَرُ مِنْ أَبْصَارِ الْعُيُونِ. That those awham, those imaginations that are in your hearts are bigger than absar al-uyun, what you see through your eyes. So a lot of times you see something through your eyes, does not give you the big picture. But those imaginations that you have in your heart and your mind is something which leads to bigger things. Yes, a lot of times you see things, you get an idea and you go ahead and make something. But that which you contemplate in your awham, in your imagination, and then you bring forth, that's something which is incomparable. And there's no comparison whatsoever. So there's what it says from the kalam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it says, وَمَا يَسْتَوِ الْعَامَ وَالْبَصِيرِ. Allah even compares that there's no comparison between, or rather they're not equal. They're not at the same istawa. They're not at the same level, those who are blind and those who can see. Now, of course, of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Quran is kalam hakim. Allah will not be saying something like this. Otherwise, someone would say, well, Allah is speaking in a derogatory manner toward those who are blind. What's their fault that they were born blind, for example? So that's the literal understanding of someone, which is a very simplistic understanding of someone if they were to take the Quran and its words in its literal sense. That Ama and Basir, blind and the one who can see, are not equal. Everybody knows that. Not equal in a sense that blind cannot see and the person who's got eyesight can see. But that's something which even a child knows. Quran being that book revealed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, why would it talk about something so basic? Say it's not talking about in the literal sense and comparing between those who are blind and those who can see. Rather, it is talking about both these people, A'ma and Basir, are people of sight. Both possess a correct vision where they're able to see. But amongst these people who can see are those who are blind, and amongst these people who can see are those who are Basir. That means those who possess insight. Prophet is above all the Prophet of Islam, the noble Prophet. But we still see in Quran that Allah commands him to remember the Prophet. There's no comparison between the maqam of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and maqam of Hazrat Ibrahim maqam of Hazrat Ishaq, maqam of Hazrat Yaqub. But it's still, when Prophet of Islam is above all the prophets, we see in Quran that Allah commands him to remember who? وَاذْكُرْ عِبَادَنَا إِبْرَاهِيمَ وَإِسْحَاقَ وَيَعْقُوبَ. And remember our servants such as Ibrahim, Ishaq, and Yaqub. Who are these people? Father, son, and grandson. Ibrahim is father, Ishaq is his son, and Yaqub is the grandson. Oh Prophet, remember these three, our prophets. How? By saying, Ya Ibrahim, Ya Ibrahim, Ya Ishaq, Ya Ishaq, Ya Yaqub, Ya Yaqub. Is that how Allah wants Prophet to remember them? Do the dhikr? Or let me bring it closer. Is that how Rasulullah wants us to remember Imam Hussein by saying, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein? Oh Prophet, remember Ibrahim, remember Yaqub, remember Ishaq. How? Just keep saying, Ya Ibrahim, Ya Ibrahim, Ya Ibrahim. Do a tasbih of Ibrahim. Do a tasbih of Ishaq. Do a tasbih of Yaqub. Similarly, when we are recommended to remember Imam Hussein, do what? Tasbih of Imam Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein. Count on your fingers how many times you've said it. Most definitely not. Most definitely not. That's not what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is commanding Rasulullah to remember Hazrat Ibrahim by just remembering his name, Ishaq by his name, Yaqub by his name. When he says, وَذْكُرْ عِبَادَنَا إِبْرَاهِيمَ وَإِسْحَاقَ وَيَعْقُوبَ, it says, أُولِي الْأَيْدِي وَالْأَبْصَارِ. They were men of strength and insight. The philosophy of remembrance is such, according to Quran. Don't just remember them by name, by their names, rather by the virtues that they possessed. So if you want to remember Hussein ibn Ali, not just by saying Hussein, Ya Hussein, Hussein, and different ways of doing the tasbih of Imam Hussein. Rather, remember Imam Hussein, ulil aydi wal absar. As Quran is saying about Ibrahim, Ishaq, and Yaqub. Don't just remember them by names, rather remember them by their virtues that they possessed. Imam Hussein possessed the virtues, so many virtues. But the ones that stand out in front of us, the concept of shahadat that Imam presented, the philosophy of martyrdom that he presented, altruism, ithar that he presented, that he sacrificed everything for the sake of the religion. These are the virtues of Sayyid al-Shuhada, Imam Hussein. Remember him with those virtues according to the ayat of Quran. So Amir al-Mu'mineen, Imam al-Muttaqeen, Ali ibn Abi Talib said, if a person is blind, it's easier for him than not having insight. He says, فَقْدُ الْبَصَرِ أَهْوَنُ مِنْ فُقْدَانِ الْبَصِيرَةِ. So if a person is blind, it's easier for him than not having insight. Many have eyes but have no insight whatsoever. فَقْدُ الْبَصَرِ أَهْوَنُ. Not having eyesight, it is easier مِنْ فُقْدَانِ الْبَصِيرَةِ than not having an insight. Imam Bakr alayhi wasalam, he entered Masjid-e-Nabawi, asked one of his companions to find out if anyone noticed the son of Rasulullah, walked into the masjid. Everyone was busy in their work with their, someone was praying, someone was doing tahleel or tasbih or sujood or ruku' or reading Quran, things that you usually do in a masjid. Everyone was busy with their own work. Or socializing, for example, or back then there were lectures and classes that were conducted in masajid. Still today in Hawza Ilmiya, if you go, there are many masajid which are used for lectures. Usually these are the lectures given by the Grand Maraja. So everybody was busy with their own work. Nobody noticed. Imam then told him to ask a person who was blind and sitting far away if he noticed Imam Muhammad Baqir walking in. Companion said to himself, I asked those who have eyes, those who can see, who have correct vision. Even they didn't notice Imam. How will he notice the one who's blind? But it was a command of Imam, so he went ahead and he asked that blind man. That blind man responded by saying, yes, I noticed. He entered from so-and-so door. Man was perplexed. Asked him, how do you see? He said, how can I not see that the walls and the alleys and the floor all welcomed Imam? It wasn't just the people who didn't notice Imam, but everything else that is in the surrounding. Don't take for granted these daro divar. Don't take for granted the other creations that exist amongst us. For example, those we can't see. Don't take for granted if there are angels around. Don't take for granted if there are jinns around. And all of the other creations of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. From insects to animal to people to angels to jinns. When the son of Rasulullah walked in, even these walls welcomed him. These floors welcomed him. These alleys welcomed him. How can I not notice the wujud of such an individual? I don't need eyes to see that someone is being welcomed by all of the makhluqat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is called basirat. So here I want to mention the types and the methods of basirat that exist. Because with examples, it's easier to comprehend an issue. The night of Ashura, of course, it is not a majlis, so I'm not going to be talking about the Messiah, but I have to use the examples from Ashura to present to you the basirat. Night of Ashura, they want to give letter of immunity to Hazrat Abbas. The reason is because he belongs to, his mother is Fatima bint Hizam, the clan that she belongs to, and Shimr. So he wants to give letter of immunity to Hazrat Abbas. He said, you come with us, or don't even come, you just leave. And we will give you this immunity that nothing will happen to you. We all know what immunity is. The outgoing president and the incoming president, and the immunity that is given to the president while they're in office. And a lot of this battle that is going on politically now, maybe to save themselves from the wrath that is to come afterwards when they're no longer in this power. So the letter of immunity was presented to Hazrat Abbas, Qabr Bani Hashim. You know what he responded by saying? This is the basirat. He said, La'anat be upon your immunity letter, Aman Nama. May there be curse upon your Aman Nama. The immunity letter that you have brought for me, giving me immunity, giving me safety and security, that nothing will happen to me. La'anat be upon your Aman Nama. There's no immunity without Hussein. You want me to leave Hussein ibn Ali and find refuge and safety and security and save my life? He said, you've forgotten one thing. There's no immunity without Hussein. You think that this life, saving this life and safeguarding it, of course, it is a wajib. But now when something bigger than this life is at stake, when Islam is at stake, that's it, when it's become wajib to go ahead and sacrifice yourself. So if I go with you, there's no aman. There's only aman and security and immunity with Hussein ibn Ali and not without him. You have probably missed that point. Baneen was told, all your children died in Karbala. Kulluhum وَمَنْ تَحْتَ الْخَضْرَى فَدَى الْحُسَيْنِ. This is what she responded by saying. She said, every one of them and everything that is under, for example, this sky or above, this land is fida of Hussein ibn Ali. My sons, what do they matter? Everything is fida and sacrifice for Hussein. Even then, it would not be enough. That's why we see the basirat that you find in the kalam of Masumin, the insight that they're trying to inculcate into. And inshallah, I'll bring it to Hazrat Zainab. One more story of our sixth Imam, Imam Jafar al-Sadiq, alayhi salatu wasalam. Sixth Imam left his wasiyat nama, the will. Mansur Dawaniqi, Hakim of Medina, Abdullah Afta, his wife, and Musa ibn Jafar. These were the names of those who were the wasi of 6th Imam. Mansur Dawaniqi himself, Hakim of Medina, Abdullah Afta, his wife, and Imam Musa ibn Jafar. Person came to Najaf and saw Abu Hamza Thamali giving dars of tafsir. He announced the death of 6th Imam. Abu Hamza stopped his lecture and he wept and he cried out loud. You know, Abu Hamza, his status and his companionship with our 4th Imam up until 6th Imam, that famous dua, Abu Hamza Thimali. Abu Hamza is father of 3 martyrs, by the way. Do you know who he left as his wasi? Abu Hamza asked him. The guy said, no, because he mentioned 5 names. After he read 5 names, because, you know, of course, when 6th Imam is leaving 5 names and naming 5 people to be his wasi, ordinary people will be confused. But this is Abu Hamza Thamali. He said, who did he leave as his wasi? The guy said, I don't know, because he mentioned 5 names. After he read 5 names, Mansur Dawaniqi, Hakim of Medina, Abdullah Afta, Imam's wife, and Musa ibn Jafar. Abu Hamza said, Alhamdulillah alladhi hadana. He said, praise be to Allah who has given us guidance. Then he explained. He said, Mansur and the Hakim of Medina cannot be the wasi of Imam, the leader of Shias. They were thirsty of the blood of Imam. Abdullah, who cannot run his own life, who was a mess, will not be the leader. Women are not in the leadership position because we don't have any prophets and imams who are women, and I'll explain that concept towards the end as well. So only Musa ibn Jafar والسلام, fits this criteria. And this is the basirat of a person like Abu Hamza Thimali to understand. And of course, Imam Sadiq والسلام, did this for a reason, because Mansur Dawaniqi had ordered Hakim of Medina that read the wasiyat of Jafar al-Sadiq and see whoever is his wasi, kill him as well. So right away, now he said, the Wali of Medina writes, who should I kill? It has my name in it, your name in it, his wife's name in it, and 2 of his sons. He said, okay, leave it alone. So there are 3 types of basira that I want to touch upon tonight. One is basirat akhlaqi, the insight that has to do with your ethics, morality. Second is basirat dini, the insight when it comes to your religion. And third is basirat siyasi, the political basirat. Now we all become very, we become experts in some of these things. Like we have a lot of insight when it comes to siyasat and politics. We've seen the politics around this country, and the transition of one president to the other president, and the time it takes for the transfer of power. And then, what's all at stake, what's behind it. People then analyze, but I'll mention that when I come to the third part of it. So the first one is the basirat, which has to do with the akhlaq, which has to do with the ethics and morality. Imam Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib, he says, Absarun nas man absara uyubahu wa aqla'a an dunubih. The more insightful of mankind is the one who is able to recognize and diagnose, the word tashkhis, his own defects, and the one who's able to remove his sins. That's basirat akhlaqi. That you don't need to be alim of akhlaq and the teacher of ethics and morality if you're lacking this ability. Imam said the more insightful of mankind, the most of them, is the one who's able to recognize his own defects, because nobody's perfect. We all possess defects. Some have more, some have less, but we all have defects. And because of the wujud of this defect, it makes us what? Makes us fallible. We're not infallible. But a lot of us are in denial when it comes to our defects. No, I don't have that, because nobody wants any sort of defect to be associated with them. Imam says, the more insightful a person is, the one who's able to recognize their own defects, and the one who's able to remove, because of the recognition that he has of his defects, the sins which are the effects of those defects. Physical illness can be assessed by a physician and removed with medicine. You get sick, you have COVID-19, the vaccination is out. You get that vaccination, it tells your body how to react and how to develop those antibodies. And eventually, if you are exposed to the virus in your practical life, then your body already knows how to deal with it. So you'll remain immune. So physical illness can be assessed by a physician and removed with medicine. But the spiritual illness, now of course there's a lot of study being done on this aspect, where you go see psychiatrists, psychologists, mental health providers. They're working on this. The spiritual illness, however, is a difficult one to diagnose and then to go ahead and cure. Physical illness, you can see the athar, and you go ahead and treat it with a medicine. You give one medicine. If it works, good. If it doesn't, they change the medicine. Those who are diabetic, they give them one medicine and say, well, this is not working. Let's add the dose or change the medicine. This one will be more effective. So because you can see physically the effects of the medicine that has been given. But when it comes to spiritual illness, person possesses it. It's sometimes very difficult to diagnose by someone else, unless that person himself moves forward and comes forward and says, yes, I have this illness. And then on the second step, it's very difficult to go ahead and cure it once you have diagnosed it. Ayatul Falsafi said there are three types of people, or there are three people who can help. If you want help, these three people can help. One, yourself. Second, your friend, could be your spouse. And third, your enemy. So you can help yourself. If you want to find out about someone, find out about yourself rather, you can help yourself. You can tell yourself, this is the illness, or this is the issue that I have. This is the mental issue that I have. This is the spiritual lacking that I have. I'm doing these things because of this. This is happening. I'm not doing these things because of that. I'm suffering, for example. Someone can, if anyone can diagnose, it's you yourself. Number two, to an extent, someone who can help you is your friend, is your spouse, because they know you in and out. They know your life that is in front of them. And third, your enemy, because your enemy has also studied you. All of these can diagnose your illness, not just physical, but rather your spiritual illness, because they know your akhlaq. They know what you do and how you react in certain situations. And therefore, they're easy to help when it comes to, if you want to get help, first and foremost, you can help yourself. But if you're in denial, then ask your closest friend, could be in the form of your spouse, and then listen to their word. And thirdly, if you can get access to your enemy, they would be very helpful in diagnosing the illness that you possess. So that's as far as the Baseerat akhlaq is concerned. Number two is Baseerat dini, your insight when it comes to this religion. Prophet Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, if a person has three things, his aql is complete. ثلاثة أجزاء فمن كن فيه كمل عقله ولم تكن فيه فلا عقل له. That if a person has three elements, his aql is kamil, his intellect is at its peak. وَمَنْ لَمْ تَكُنْ فِيهِ, and if a person doesn't have these, فَلَا عَقْلَ لَهُ. La nafiya jins, it's called. There's no aql for that person whatsoever. What are these three things? حُسْنُ الْمَعْرِفَةِ لِلَّهِ وَحُسْنُ الطَّاعَةِ لِلَّهِ وحسن الصبر على أمر الله. Having a good ma'rifat of Allah, having a good husn al-ta'at, obedience of Allah, وحسن الصبر على أمر الله, and having good patience upon the affairs and the matters that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has decreed upon you. That's basirat dini, the insight about religion. Someone says, what do you think about this deen? You say, well, deen is the name of ma'rifat of Allah. Deen is the name of ita'at and the obedience of Allah. And deen is the name of doing sabr and showing patience in front of the commands of Allah. And that's where Rasulullah is saying is ikmal of your intellect and your aql. So therefore, we find people like Shah Abdul Azim Hassani. He asks Imam Ali Naqi al-Hadi alayhi if his aqaid are correct. He himself is at the very high position and rank, but still he goes and asks. Last is Baseerat siyasi. Wahum saasatul ibad. In Ziyarat Jami Kabira, also Imam Khomeini said, whoever thinks siyasat is separate from deen hasn't understood either one of the two. Hum saasatul ibad. That's the attribute of Ma'asumin that is mentioned in Ziyarat Jamia. Janab Zainab Salamullah alayha also possessed the highest level of basirat in deen, akhlaq, and siyasat. You hear a great deal about her siyasi or her bayan and her speech that she had given. That's totally siyasat. Well, it is based on reality and haqqaniyat, but she's not playing and beating around the bush, as we say, when it comes to speaking to the tyrant ruler of the time. Today people go ahead and when they see the leader of the free world or the leader of any nation, anyone who is in some sort of authority, you find what? People come to them, they do their khushamad, they try to do things to please them, they try to do things so to attain their satisfaction. That's not true, that's not right. That's the corrupted siyasat. That's the siyasat Sixth Imam is saying stay away from. जिसको हम चापलूसी का नाम देते हैं, खुशामदी का नाम देते हैं. That's why a lot of people, and allow me to say this, is that what Ali was a great man of intellect and knowledge, but he was not a very good politician. Right? Imam Ali does not know politics, then who else? And so Muawiyah was a good politician. Imam responded, Tilkan nakira. That's not politics, that's evil. To be cunning, to go ahead and deviate people from the path, to show them the false picture. And the example of it is when Ammar was killed in the Battle of Siffin. When he was killed, and people had heard this tradition from Rasulullah, who said, "O Ammar, innama taqtuluka fi'at al-baghiya." You will be killed by a rebellious group. So people were always afraid of getting in confrontation with Ammar. But when he was killed, people right away started mentioning, oh, remember? Rasulullah had said this about Ammar, and we killed him. This is where Muawiyah comes in. He says, no, we didn't kill him. He was killed by those people who brought him here. That means Ali. If Ali hadn't brought him here, he wouldn't have been killed. So we didn't kill him. It's Ali who killed him. And people bought into it. Or for example, the siyasat of Amr As when Battle of Siffin is at the Malik Ashtar is about to finish things off. We find what happens, that they raise Quran on these spears. And there goes down the drain all the basirat of the Muslimin at that time. So Janab Zainab possessed the highest level of basirat when it came to deen, akhlaq, and siyasat. Hazrat Abdullah went and got this, the husband of Janab Zainab, the Aman Nama, the secure immunity for Imam Hussein. She was awarded these titles by Masumin. And of course, that Aman Nama was prior to the battle, right? So this is not when you're in the battlefield, you're facing the enemy. Hazrat Abdullah was trying to avoid the conflict altogether. But at the same time, while Hazrat Abdullah was trying to avert, don't take this in the wrong way, still he allows Janab Zainab to take part. And when he himself cannot go, he sends his children on in Muhammad. So don't think that, he was trying to avert for his own life. A person tries to save his kids and his family first before they want to save themselves. But we see that Hazrat Abdullah, the highest, the rank that he possesses, they say, if I can't come for whatever reasons, here's my fidya, here's my sacrifice. And that's calls for immense amount of basirat. So when Janab Zainab is at the highest level of these basirat, and when it comes to deen and akhlaq and siyasat, you find that she was awarded these titles by a masum or by masumin, not by ordinary people. If someone, who's an ayatollah, for example, and if I go ahead and say, well, this is ayatollah, he's great, he's alim, he's a mujahid, and he's coming from a person like me, who has a lower level than him. But if an imam of the time goes ahead and does the tawqi' or endorses a scholar, such as we find in the books of history about how Imam Zamana had spoken about Sheikh Mufid, for example, and other such ulama, those who got the maqam, such as Allama Hilli or Allama Majlisi, Muqaddas Ardebeli, for example. When Imam Zamana comes and endorses such individuals, then you say, yeah, this person is alim baqaida. This person is knowledgeable. This person is someone who we would refer to. Why? Because a ma'soom is recommended this person. If I go ahead and praise the marja of the time, so what? Everyone can do that because they're above us as far as their knowledge is concerned. But someone who's above them comes and praises. That's where you find. So when a person dies, a marja writes about that individual, how they write about him. That also shows you the rank that they want to give. So she was awarded these titles by Masumin. Alimatu ghayri mu'allima. She's a alima, knowledgeable, who did not attend any mu'allim. She was at the level of iffat and haya, modesty and chastity. When it comes to her jihad, when it comes to her sabr, her shaja'at, bravery and valor, isar of Janab Zainab, for example. There's a difference between the isar and the altruism Janab Zainab presented and Hazrat Hajar, wife of Ibrahim. Both did sabr on their kids, right? Janab Hazrat Hajar, she's with Hazrat Ismail when he's an infant, running around looking for water. And when he's old enough, Hazrat Ibrahim says, prepare him. Or the words are, when Ibrahim was taking Ismail for sacrifice, he asked Hazrat Hajar to prepare your son for the ziyafat of Allah, for the, to be the guest of Allah. Since Hazrat Ismail was saved, we know the story, with the call from Allah which says, وَفَدَيْنَاهُ بِذِبْحٍ عَظِيمٍ, then we ransomed him with a great sacrifice. Ibrahim brought Ismail back. And when the mother saw the marks of the sharp knife on the throat, she fainted and fell on the ground. That's the mother of Hazrat Ismail. Now look at the mother of On and Muhammad and the Masaib, how she says that I will not forgive you if you came back alive, for example. No, the purpose is to go and sacrifice yourselves. So that's the Isar of Bibi Zainab salamullahi alayha. That's the peak of altruism, that on the day of, or the Asr of Ashura, she said what? She said, Allahumma taqabbal minna hadha al-qalil. Just focus on this sentence for a second. Not from the Masaib perspective, from the Baseerat perspective. Allahumma, oh Allah, taqabbal minna, accept from us, minna yani us Ahlul Bayt, what? Hadha al-qalil, this little sacrifice. Oh Allah, accept from us this little sacrifice. What little sacrifice? Do we not know the rutbah and the rank of Imam Hussein, who's amongst the sacrifices? This is Asra Ashur. She's not talking about her own sons, On and Muhammad, where you could say, well, okay, sure. She considers her sons to be this qalil, although their sacrifice is huge as well. She's saying this Asra Ashur after Imam Hussein has been martyred, after Hazrat Abul Fadl Abbas has been martyred. Janab Zainab is comparing that, using the ta'abir, the sacrifice of Imam Hussein and the sacrifice of Hazrat Abbas, the sacrifice of Ali Akbar, all is what? Hada qalil. This is very little. Oh Allah, accept from us this qalil. We also make the same dua, right? After the majlis says, Allah hamari is qalil si ibad ko qabul farma. Oh Allah, accept this qalil ibadat from us. So she's making this statement, Allahumma taqabbal minna hada al-qalil. So here we understand the rutbah of Imam Hussein, the rank of Hazrat Abul Fazl Abbas, yet Janab Zainab is saying that Allah accept this qalil from us. So what does that tell you? That tells you her basirat when it comes to the purpose of life, this deen that we have been created for, that the struggle that we have for this deen. And that's why you heard this sentence a great deal, her jihad, the jihad of Janab Zainab. فقال ابن زياد كيف رأيتِ صنع الله بأخيك وأهل بيتك. How did you find or see what Allah did with your brother and with your Ahl Bayt? This is here mocking. He's mocking. He's making fun of it. Ibn Ziyad, may Allah's curse be upon him. He's mocking Janab Zainab by saying, look what Allah did to your brother. Anyone would lose their cool at that moment, but not Bibi Zainab. She didn't say, I will do sabr. What Allah did to my brother and my Ahl Bayt, I will do sabr. She didn't say, oh, not bad. She didn't say it was good. Neither did she remain silent. She responded. But what a response. And you've heard this sentence a million times. فقالت, she said, ما رأيت إلا جميلة. I see nothing but beauty in it. What did Allah do to your brother and your Ahl Bayt? She said, nothing but beauty in it. She didn't say, I will do sabr on what happened. Oh, not bad. It was good. Or remain silent. Rather, she responded and responded in the most fitting way by saying, Ma ra'aytu illa jamila. I see nothing but beauty in it. Look at it from my perspective. Look at it from the insight that I possess. You go buy a mirror. Let's say you go shopping for a mirror. When you're buying a mirror, you're not looking at the mirror the way you look at the mirror when it's in your house already, right? There are two perspectives of looking at the mirror. Once you look into a mirror to fix your own appearance, say yes, of course, baal, everything is fine. You're looking at your own reflection in the mirror. But when you're buying a mirror, you're not looking at your own reflection, because the reflection will be the same regardless of the fact that the mirror costs you $1 or it costs you $1,000. The reflection will be the same that comes from the mirror. That part, the duty, that which the mirror is made for is the same. is going to show you the same exact reflection. But when you're buying a mirror, you're not looking at your own reflection in it. You're looking at the beauty, the way it's been carved, the way it's been designed, the colors that have been used. Will it look good in my, for example, foyer, or in my bedroom, or wherever I want to hang it, for example? So you look at the mirror from two perspectives. One, you see inside of it to see your own reflection. You look at it from bird's eye view to see how presentable it is. This is where Basirat comes in, brothers and sisters. Janab Zainab is looking at it from which perspective? You could take the argument for either one. Not inside the mirror, because that's what people will see. Everybody got killed. And being killed is a loss. And a loss means that you lost. She's looking at the overall beauty of it. Ma ra'aytu illa jamila. I hope I was able to explain this falsafa of the kalam of Bibi Zainab salamullahi alayha. She's at the highest level of modesty and chastity. In Medina, there is a person by the name Yahya Mazni, who's a neighbor, immediate neighbor of Imam Ali alayhi salatu wasalam. He said, I have never seen Janab Zainab or heard her voice my entire life while I was their neighbors for so many years. In fact, if anyone told me that there's a daughter, I would deny it. Well, of course, it was known that Imam Ali and Janab Sayyidah have the children and their names were known. But he said, I, being the neighbor of Ali ibn Abi Talib, have never seen Zainab, and I have never heard her voice. Just imagine someone who's at that level of modesty, where the immediate neighbor has never seen their face and never heard their voice. That's why when Amir al-Mu'mineen was struck by Ibn Muljam and he was coming back home, he asked his companions, na mahram, to his family, leave. Let my family carry me from this moment on. Why? Because my daughters will be crying. I don't want their voices to be coming to your ears to that extent. So, Janab Zainab is at that level of haya and iffat. But when a person is at such a level of haya and iffat, just imagine how difficult it must have been for her when she was taken out of the tents and paraded from Kufa to Sham. For an ordinary person who doesn't care for hijab, who doesn't care for modesty, who doesn't care for, any of these things, for them, this would be not that bad. That would be normal thing. But for someone whose neighbor is acknowledging the fact that I've never heard her voice, never seen her, to be taken out, it's just mind-blowing. And then having the shaja'at, having the valor, having the bravery to stand firm with haqq and reality. This is siyasat that I was referring to earlier. The siyasat is not that you, I don't want to use these words, kiss up to someone, chaplusi, khushamadi. No. You take the path of haqq always, even if it goes against you. And then when you stand by the truth, you're able to convince the side. Alladhina yuballighuna risalatallahi. Alladhina yuballighuna risalatillahi. Wa yakhshawnahu wa la yakhshawna ahada illallah. Those who are responsible for conveying the message of Allah, they fear no one except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when Janab Zainab is standing in this crowd of enemies who with one ishara, one signal can take their lives, in the darbar of Yazid and darbar of Ibn Ziyad, but still having the courage to go ahead and speak her mind, to go ahead and speak the truth. Her exalted position is such that when Imam Hussein alayhi, because she spent the greatest amount of time with Imam Hussein. She spent only about 4 or 5 years with her grandfather Rasulullah. Same amount of time, 5 or 6 years with her mother, Janab Fatima Zahra. She spent about 35 years with her father, Amir al-Mu'mineen, and she spent about 45 years with her brother, Imam Hassan, but she spent the longest amount of time with Imam Hussein, because she's only a couple of years younger than Imam Hussein, and they grew up together, they stayed together, they lived together, and so this is the companionship of over 50 years. So there are a lot of instances between the two of them. So whenever Imam Hussein would be reciting Quran, Janab Zainab would walk in, Imam Hussein would stand up from his place, put away the Quran. This is out of respect for Bibi Zainab. You hear the same when Rasulullah used to deal with Janab Fatimatu Zahra. But Zahra is Insiya Hawra. She's amongst the infallible 14 Masumeen in Chaharda Masumeen. One of them is Zahra. So it is her status that she's respected that way by her father, and she's Abiha. People blame that Islam degrades women, but we find on the contrary, the presence of such women elevated their rank in Islam above men, in fact, some places. Yes, as I alluded to this before, and I promise that I'll come back to it, that you don't find any prophets or imams to be women. Right? Can you name any prophets who are women? Can you name any imams who are women? But the mission of the prophets would remain incomplete if there wasn't the wujud of women behind them. Let's give the example of our own noble prophet, Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam. His mission would remain incomplete without Hazrat Khadija salamullahi alaiha. Quran talks about it. That وَوَجَدَكَ عَائِلًا فَأَغْنَى. And that refers a direct connection to Bibi Khadija salamullahi alaiha. The life of Amir al-Mu'mineen would be incomplete without Bibi Fatimatu Zahra salamullahi alaiha. And most of all, the mission of Imam Hussein and his sacrifice would have gone in vain, and I'm using this term loosely, had it not been for Sharikatul Hussein, Bibi Zainab salamullahi alaiha. Right? How much it depends on bringing, that is the exact philosophy of why Imam Hussein brought Bibi Zainab and the likes of Bibi Zainab. That they would be killed in Karbala, that Imam Hussein already knew that. This was a prophecy given to him way before the Shahadat. So he knows that he will be killed over there. But the after effects of his killing, of his Shahadat, that too in that time in Arabia, where there aren't any internet zarai or these news outlets or media out there covering all of this. That's why you find so much contradictory things in it. But the wujud of Sharikatul Hussein, Bibi Zainab, completes the mission of Imam Hussein. Imam Hussein's mission is a divine mission. But who is completing this divine mission? Imam Hussein attained the Shahadat. But the completion of the mission comes with Bibi Zainab. 11th Imam Hassan Askari made his paternal aunt his wakil, Hakima Khatun. He said, if you can't get to me because of, hukama of the time, the rulers, the time rulers, they're always surveilling us, then go see her. She will give you the reply to your questions. We trust her the same way. And Imam is taking such, steps to make a woman in the house, Hakima Khatun, who's not infallible, who's not masum, to be what? His wakil, so that people could refer to her. When someone inquired 11th Imam why he made his aunt wakil, he replied, Iqtadaytu bi Jaddil Hussein. I just did iqtada, or I just followed my Jad, Imam Hussein, who made Zainab responsible for everything with the presence of Imam Zain al-Abidin, who's Imam Masum over there. But because he knew the limitations of Imam Zain al-Abidin, he made her to be what? Her wakil, his wakil, to go ahead and do things after his shahadah. Even Yazid Lanatullah alayh had to acknowledge the fact that this household's men and women are not ordinary people. After hearing the sermons of Bibi Zainab, he said, Inna ha'ulai warathul ilma wal fasaha wa dhaqqul ilma taqwa. People of this family inherited knowledge and eloquence from their ancestors, Rather, they're fed this knowledge through the milk their mothers have provided them with. And that is Janab Zainab Salamullah alayha, whose mother is none other than Fatima Zahra Salamullahi alayha. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on this grand day when we are celebrating the prosperous birth, that He gives us the tawfiq to look at our lives as and make our lives to be basirat and insightful. Basirat as far as our akhlaq is concerned, our deen is concerned, and our siyasat is concerned. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the mind and intellect and aql which is at its kamal, by having the marifat of Allah, by having the husne marifat, husne ta'at, and the obedience in Allah, and doing sabr upon the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And He keeps us on the path of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salatu wasalam. Wa akhiru da'wana and alhamdulillah rabbil alameen. Inna Allah wa malaikatahu yusalluna ala nabi. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu sallu alayhi wa sallimu taslima. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.
اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد. السلام عليك يا نبي الله، السلام عليك يا رسول الله، السلام عليك يا حبيب الله، وعلى ابن عمك أمير المؤمنين، وعلى ابنتك فاطمة الزهراء سيدة نساء العالمين، وعلى ولديك الحسن والحسين سيدي شباب أهل الجنة، وعلى 9 المعصومين من ذرية الحسين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا غريب الغرباء، السلام عليك يا معين الضعفاء والفقراء، السلام عليك يا شمس الشموس وأنيس النفوس أيها المدفون بأرض التوس. السلام عليك يا علي بن موسى رضا ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا صاحب العصر والزمان، السلام عليك يا خليفة الرحمن، السلام عليك يا شريك القرآن، السلام عليك يا إمام الزمان، أجل الله تعالى فرجك وسهل الله مخرجك وجعلنا من أنصارك وعنك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.